Instructor Kim here. The goal for today is to go through some basic stretches that are going to help you achieve the splits and also help relieve any stress or any pain that you're feeling in your lower back, your legs and in your hips. These stretches are quite basic. We can modify them to make them easier for you, or we can modify them to make them a little bit more difficult if you are quite flexible. I'm moderately flexible, so I'm still working on this, and the stretches that I'm showing you work for me and my body type, which is close to 50, moderately flexible, but also I do struggle with a little bit of pain. So we'll go through slowly. The stretches that I'll show you today, I'll show you for about 10 to 15 seconds, but it's really up to you how long you hold them for, depending on what stretch you want and how quickly you want to achieve the splits. So with that, we'll get started. Okay, so before we begin, it is important that your body is warm. Normally when you're doing these stretches, you are warm, you're not outside in winter. So if you haven't done that already, a little bit of a jog on the spot, moving your arms around, moving your legs around, pause the video and do that now. If not, we're ready to go. So in the beginning, we're going to start with our feet fairly wide, 2 or 3 shoulder pits apart. I need you to bend your knees and be able to take your heels off the ground. So when you twist your body, you're not going to stretch or strain your knees and ankle. So it allows for you to twist and get that stretch without damaging your knees and ankles. So just nice and light, stretches back and forth. You can reach out or wave to people. Good, excellent. From here, keeping your legs wide. The important thing about this stretch is to maintain the integrity of this stretch. Keep your knees locked straight. Tilt your pelvis back slightly. You might feel a little bit of a pull or a pinch in your lower back. That's how you know your pelvis is tilted. If for any reason stretching forward means you bend your knees or curve your back, come up higher, please don't drop down. Your knees have to be locked. Your pelvis needs to be tilted back if you're going to get this stretch down your hamstring. So from here, hands on your hips, pelvis tilted, knees locked, flat back. We want to hold this around 30 seconds to a minute. Again, it really is up to you depending on how much of a stretch you want to get. From here though, we're going to relax our shoulders and let gravity just hang our hands down to the ground. If your hands are touching quite firmly, you can turn them around and walk them further behind you. Otherwise, just relax and breathe through these stretches. From here, we're going to now bend our knees, coming up very slowly. Roll your shoulders, bit of a twist, and now we start the process again. From here though, we now bring our feet in to about a foot's distance. Again, tilt your pelvis, keep your knees locked straight, hands on your hips, flat back. Again, if this is as far as you can go with locked knees and a flat back, then that is as far as you go. Otherwise, down to here. And again, hold this stretch for as long as you need to feel that you are actually getting that hamstring stretch. And from there, big breath out, relax your shoulders, let your hands go down to the ground. If you're touching quite firmly and you want a harder stretch, turn your hands around and walk through to your feet. Otherwise, just relax and breathe through that stretch. And from here, bend your knees slightly, come up slowly, roll your shoulders, and again, just stretch through your back. Last stretch, exactly the same as the last two, however, now our feet are together. So, straighten your knees, tilt your pelvis, hands on your waist, flat back, as far as you can go without compromising the integrity of that stretch. Flat back. And hold this for a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, whichever you're comfortable with. Last time, roll your shoulders, drop down, have your hands on the floor. Bend your knees, come up slowly, roll your shoulders. Good. Shake out your legs and your hands, bit of a twist. Now we'll move on to the next stretch. Okay, so now that we're nice and warm, and our backs and our hips are loosened up a little bit, we're going to start into our lunges, eventually dropping down into our splits. Before I start, I do want to say there is such a thing as overstretching, so please listen to your body. Get a good stretch in, breathe through, but just don't hurt yourself. Your body will let you know how far is too far. Please listen. All right, so we're going to drop down into a lunge. Bend that front knee. Make sure that your hips and your shoulders are facing the way that you are facing, and drop down. Again, hold this for 30 seconds to a minute. It really depends on how quickly you want to achieve the splits and how far you can stretch your body. From here, we're going to drop our knee down, and we're going to pull our front foot out a little bit further in front so that you can see your toes over your knee. You're going to tilt your pelvis this way rather than this way. So tilting our pelvis this way, we're going to stretch down into that hip flexor and help loosen up those tight hips. Just drop down, trying to keep your core as your balance rather than touching the ground with your hands. Now we're going to pull back, straighten our knee, and keeping our shoulders straight and our hips straight, rest our chest down onto our knee. Now again, here's where you can roll your back. So do not compromise the integrity of that stretch. Keep your back up, keep your hips tilted back, and if this is as far as you can go, then that's where you stay. Otherwise, tummy down, rest your hands on the ground for support, and pull your tummy and your chest down to your knee. Good. From here, we're going to go back into that lunge, except this time it's going to be a little bit deeper, so we're going to pull our foot a little further forward, getting that hip flexor stretch, getting your breath and your core strength, and dropping down into splits, or as far into a lunge as you can. If splits is too much or this is too soon, don't push it. Ease down into your lunge. Good. And from here, just roll out very slightly. Give your legs a bit of a massage, and then we're going to stand up and go and do the other side. Again, from here, drop down into your lunge, keeping your shoulders and your hips straight to the way that you're going. Now we're going to drop our knee, bring our foot a little further forward so we can see our toes, tilt your pelvis this way, and drop down into that lunge. And if this is as far as you can go, then this is as far as you can go. This is actually quite a good stretch. You can stop here. Now we're going to pull our knees straight. Keep your shoulders straight. Again, don't roll your back. If this is as far as you can go, then this is as far as you can go. Otherwise, tummy down onto your knee, and you can use the floor for balance. Good. Now coming up again, down into a further lunge. And from here, nicely, gently blow out your breath and drop down into splits. Good. Now roll out. Again, bring your legs in, give them a bit of massage, and now we're going to work on middle splits. All right, so we've just done our front splits, and now we're down on the ground. We're starting to loosen up our back, and then we'll move into straddling and middle splits. So from here, just lay flat down on the ground. And we're going to bring up one knee with the opposite hand out to the side. We're going to pull our knee down as far down to the ground as we can. Our head normally would look this way, but because you're this way, I'm looking this way. From here, if you need a better stretch because you're not actually getting a full stretch down here, you can actually straighten your leg up. Good. From here, bring that back up. And now we'll roll down on the other side. So lay flat, knee up, opposite hand, bringing that knee as far over to the ground as possible. Your head will turn the other way. And if you need a bigger stretch, just straighten out that leg and you'll feel that all the way down your hamstring. These are really great stretches That can be done in the lounge room, on your bed, anywhere at all. So now we're going to warm up our hips so that we can then drop into middle splits. Just before we start, it's ideal if you've got some wrapped up towels or a wrapped up quilt to help support while you're stretching through your splits or your hip stretches. I've got an aerobic step right here. It does actually help if your hips are further up off the ground to do some of these stretches. If you don't have anything, it's absolutely fine, but anything at home, even a front step, would be perfect. So we'll start with our feet together, and we're going to drop our knees down. Put your bottom a little further forward on that seat. And we're going to grab our ankles, tilt your pelvis backwards, and we're going to gently come forwards. You can go down further. Use your elbows to push your knees down at the same time. And if you want a more intense stretch, you can actually bring your feet a little further forward. And the ideal position is your shoulders flat and as close down to your feet as possible. This is a good one to hold. For me, I can do this for a few minutes, not overstretching, but definitely getting a nice, good stretch down through my lower back and into my hips. And bring your feet in, just give your legs a little bit of a shake. So now we're going to drop into our frog stretch and then eventually down into middle splits. When we do that, the reason I've got this is actually quite supportive when you're dropping down into your middle splits, whether you're on your hands or down onto your elbows. It's nice to have a little support under your legs, and you can lower that as you lower down into your splits. So we'll just move out that step and we'll drop into our frog splits. So our knees will be about this far apart. So we'll look about here, but I'll do it from the side so that you can see where my legs and my hips are. So we're going to drop down, slide our knees out. And I want your knees and your hips to be aligned for this stretch. And just drop down. You can hold these stretches for a good 30 seconds to a minute. Again, up to you. Do not push too hard. Now we're going to tilt our bottoms to the ground. So our backside is moving this way. This is going to open up our hips. And now from here, we're going to pull our hips forward. Don't be alarmed if your hips give a bit of a crackle. I'm holding this pose for a good few minutes, although it does not feel comfortable if you hold it for over a minute. From here, we're going to come up on our toes, straighten your knees, and we're going to push our head down in between our shoulders so that we get a nice big stretch down our hamstrings. And this is where you pull your blanket in, and we're going to walk our feet up and very slowly, carefully breathing, drop down into your middle splits. From there, you're going to come forward and drop your pelvis to the ground. Legs together, keep your hips on the ground, hands as close to your pelvis as possible, and arch up that back. Get a nice big stretch right up into your neck. Good, and from there, coming up and into, if you're a yoga buff, cat pose or a lion pose, and just stretch out your back. Good, very good. Coming back up nice and slow, very carefully, just a gentle twist in your back. So that's all the stretches that I've got for you today. If you do these on a regular basis, you should achieve a good flexibility and hopefully one day achieve the splits. Stay safe, take care. Thanks for joining me.